3:30. Thanks for doing that. We always forget. To order at 3:33 p.m. and our first order of business is to officially call roll. Kimberly, will you please now take roll?
Sorry, I'm still chewing.
Oh, I'm gonna call it for you.
No, I got it.
Okay.
Okay. And did we say that Mindy's on her way?
Yes, she's trying to get on.
Okay. So Thomas, I saw.
I'm here. Yep.
Jay is here. Anna, which is amazing that she's joining from London. Maggie. LaJoy, I didn't see, but
LaJoy may have said she wasn't coming this time. I couldn't remember, but I think we
That's
have
fine.
to vote still.
We have the quorum, I think, though.
Yeah.
Ashley, obviously, Scott is here, and then Ashley Mathis, I saw you.
Here.
Great. And Miss Manock, I think, is probably on her way, so we do have a quorum.
Okay, great. So our first order of business is to approve our agenda, which is right here on the screen. And as a reminder, this is our budget approval meeting, which we'll review and discuss for the 2024-2025 school year. So we're gonna review the summary budget, review any changes Jay has, staffing conferences, and hopefully approve it today. Also talk about state security grant, and Go Team election announcement, all the things here up on the screen. So anyone have any changes or updates?
I don't have any changes. I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Thomas. Can I have a second?
I'll second the motion. Oh, go ahead.
I think that was Ashley
Thank you.
Magnus. Thank you. All right. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All
Aye.
opposed, say nay. All right. Any abstentions? Okay. Now we're gonna review and approve the meeting minutes from our last meeting, and those have been emailed out. Thank you, Kimberly. Were there any corrections anyone saw on the meeting minutes? I didn't see any.
No corrections. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Thanks,
I
Tom.
second.
Thanks for
Mindy?
whoever
Yeah,
seconded.
Mindy will second.
Okay, Mindy, sorry, I was.
That was Mindy who seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. All right, so great. So now we're going to move to the discussion items, of which the first is the presentation of the final budget. So I'm kicking it over to you, Jay.
All right, give me 1 second. Okay, so let me share this with y'all. All right, so just a couple things. A lot of this is a review. So we have gone through a long process of looking at our data. We looked at our winter map data, our spring data. We kind of drove those strategic priorities. We ranked them. We made sure that our strategic plan was aligned to our continuous improvement plan. We know that we have benchmarks for reading and math and whole child intervention are really those big three goals, but our literacy and numeracy goals are the biggest. We are at the finish line right here. A lot of these are review. I will say, you know, sometimes on Go Team, it's difficult to speak out or ask questions. I do appreciate this team and their ability to do that, but we had some great meetings offline. I met with at least 3 Go Team members last week and this week to get kind of a little bit of better clarity and a little bit more just or understanding and ideas. And I think that we left the meetings with a good sense of understanding. If you didn't reach out to me, that's fine, because I know you probably understand it a little more. Our teachers understand it a little bit more because they live it. But I just wanted to say that we definitely been talking since the last Go Team meeting. I had my staffing conference on Tuesday, and you probably are going to say, well, why do you have the staffing conference before the approval? Well, that's sort of how it works. In APS, they want to make sure that before we approve the budget, that everything looks good on their end, because they don't want us to approve something and then go in front of the staffing conference and there's an error, or we were supposed to abolish a position, or we didn't have enough money for this position. Luckily, I've done this before. My staffing conference took, no joke, no more than about 5 minutes, where the Go team, with my boss, my HR rep, everybody's in the room, they look at our template, and it was just well done. Looks good, looks balanced. You have great classroom size numbers. Your intervention supports are there. Your sub budget's there. Your operating budget's there. You didn't touch your reserve money. So it went really well. It doesn't go that well for everybody. And I could tell by the people that walk out before me, because that was about 45 minutes delayed for me even going in there. But it was good to know that the plan we have in place, I feel, is a great plan moving forward for next year. So with that said, I'm not going to read all these, but here's our agreements.
Hey, Jay, LaJoy's trying to join,
Yeah,
I think.
sorry. Yeah, let me let her in. Thank you.
And also, I
I
don't know
don't
if
have
you took
a,
attendance already, but Lena Minnock is coming. She is just stuck in traffic. She said she'd be about 5 minutes late.
I just let Lena in, but I don't see LaJoy, just so you know. So I don't know if you're texting with her, but I definitely let Lena in, but I don't see LaJoy in the waiting room. But I'll leave it open now so I can see. All right, so here's our essential agreements. Agenda. Here we are. We talked about down here, step 1. I mean, believe it or not, we are all the way up here now. 3 months till the end of the school year. A little less, believe it or not. Here's our budget approval meeting, what, why, and when. Remember that we need to have the budget approved by March 15th. If we hit any roadblocks or anything we need to discuss, we can meet again. We do have another meeting coming up, but if we approve it here, we may not need to have that meeting. And we can sort of talk about that at the end, and we can use that meeting to talk more about the security grant that we have on this one for the next one, because we have to talk about that one as well. So just letting you know that we are in good shape with that. Take a look at our budget review. These are items that we went through, and I created a new slide in here that's going to help kind of pull it all together. We want to make sure that we have the priority outlined, the APS 5 area, my strategies, requests, and amount. And these were some of them that we talked about. These were our priorities on the left. We talked about rationale for why we need to fund those. I don't know if I need to go through them again, but if you remember, I like this one down here because it does remind you of where we need to go for with our proficiency. We want to be above 75% for reading and math by the end of the year. We want to make sure we retain our staff. We have a reauthorization coming up. We want to make sure we're still funding International Baccalaureate. We know that our special ed students are making yearly gains in literacy rates at much different rates than others. So we want to make sure that we are supporting them, but also all subgroup students. House Bill 538, we talked a lot about. We wrote that into our strategic plan. We talked about teacher trainings and funding and new literacy supports. We talked about that literacy coach position that we have allotted to us. We're delivering faculty training around that. And a lot of these don't have dollar amounts tied directly to those priority, but I believe that if we staff the position correctly, that the priorities are met. An example is the subgroups positions and the special education positions. And if we create those EIP additional classrooms, we reduce the class sizes, we can serve our students better, and the innovative model, which we're going to talk about. And then, we talked about our strategic plan breakout. So these are some of the priorities I had and some of the strategies and requests and the amount that it's going to cost. This slide deck is not my favorite. It can be a little bit misleading because it's hard to tie dollar amounts to sort of everything we're doing, but I tried my best to do that. If you remember, we talked about hiring our 8 EIP teachers. That's all in our budget template and how much it costs. Talked about making sure we have money allotted to fund our reading programs, which the good news is a lot of those reading programs are funded through our foundation. So that money could be repurposed in that $55,000 I have left over. That's where it'll go. But I do have that on my template, so we can make sure that we fund that. Same thing with math down here. So that's about $40,000 of that $55,000 that we'll see at the end.
Jay, just for
Yes.
clarity's sake, when you say 8 EIP teachers, I'm sure everybody understands that those are homeroom teachers. Those are not the pullout teachers, just
That's correct.
so everybody knows. Okay.
That is correct. Thank you, Mindy. And EIP is early intervention. That's right. But what we will do is designate those as EIP classrooms. And I have a good visual that'll show them, Mindy, on the innovative model, so they can see that we will designate half the grade level for intervention students mixed in there with those teachers. That helps to reduce those class sizes. So yes, thank you. Keep our DLI program, our gifted teacher, keep our IB coordinator right here. Want to make sure we fund all that still. We want to make sure here's LaJoy. We want to make sure that I'm continuing to fund that 0.5 SELP position that comes out of general budget, not paid for by the district. And that is to support our nearly 10 to 12% population of special education students, but also those 2 new autism units that we got. So her job is to really help transition students in or out of that program. A lot of professional learning here. You'll see that lumped in our final sum. And that's for a consultant and some science of reading supports that we have. Again, this 7,200 and then the prior 20,000 for reading and for math right here and right here typically can be paid for by the foundation, and that'll give me spending money for next year, just so you know. And they actually did approve this yesterday, but I want to make sure I have it written in this budget, but it can be just transitioned into that 55,000 we'll have at the end of the year to spend. This is our literacy specialist that district funded. I put that in there, and the district gave us this amount of money to fund that position. That's how much a position is for one FTE teacher. This is not new, but anybody have any questions? This kind of summarizes it. These are the positions that we're creating, okay? One of them is an EIP 1 through 3rd. That's our full-time intervention position at the primary center, staffed by a teacher we already have, and that's only pull out. And then this EIP teacher is a 2nd grade teacher that we are adding in. Then we're also creating another 2nd grade teacher. I'm making a full-time school clerk. We're pulling 3 people off of CARES. And these are the created positions. These are the removed positions. We don't need this 4-5 abolishment position anymore. We don't need this 3rd one anymore. We abolish. And we're getting rid of our hourly para here, but she still has a job. We're moving her to full-time kindergarten para because we have a kindergarten para that's retiring. And we're moving our hourly clerk to full-time. So these positions are technically abolished on the budget template. They have a whole 4 or 5 slides on what happens if your staffing conference goes awry, but we didn't have that. So it was kind of like, what are you going to do now? What is your go team? Tell your go team about the changes we had to make. There were no changes. So we can probably slide through this. This was our budget by function. One thing I was committed to doing, which I did not do, and I apologize, was getting the number of positions that fall under each of these. I just did not have a chance to do that, and I apologize, but I can still send that out via email. I don't think that's going to affect anything, but people just wanted to know, like, hey, who are our 7 school administrators? Who falls under that category? Who are the 6 people that do our pupil services? However, I can still get that to you all, no problem. I did want to tell you all this is our budget by function, not a new slide. 76% of our money goes towards instruction. It's kind of where you want to see the money going. Towards we're a school, right? We talked about our reserve, what we would do with this 147, which is exciting to have because we have not had that in the past. We really have not. We've always tapped into that early on to try and get us to the start of the year. We talked about hiring a school counselor. Notice how a school counselor is a little bit more expensive than a teacher. We talked about potentially hiring another intervention teacher based off of the needs of our early data. Talked about hiring a gifted teacher. We need one, right? Talked about, this was a literacy consultant. So that's just a little bit of extra money that would be left over that we could use, right? 15,000 if somebody, we'll have a little bit of money left over. And I did meet with a couple Go Team people who indicated kind of thinking about creating another specialist like we talked about, but that specialist could be more so a science lab teacher, somebody to help lift science and math support at Maine. And I love that idea. Long story short is, if we hire a gifted teacher or we hire a science lab teacher, we could put them in the specials rotation and pull out Ms. Gillum to give her more release time. And that's sort of what we're leaning towards. And we have some ideas towards that. So if we don't get a counselor, then I'm committed to at least giving her 1, if not 2 days back of her schedule, because 2 days a week she's teaching, and that will give her 4 to 5 full days a week back with just students. So I do think we can kill 2 birds with 1 stone on that. And it's easier to hire these types of teachers when you 15 days in the school year than it is to, hire a homeroom teacher and then split kids up and do that. So we're trying to get ahead of that and making our class sizes already small. so we don't have to worry about adding teachers to grade levels. That's a goal. Any questions around the reserve at all? Did I capture sort of how we want to spend this? And we will talk about how we'll do this when we start.
Jay, I do have one question. I don't know if you can hear me or not. I have
Yeah, I
my
can, yes.
headphones on. But one thing that I noted for third grade, I know we went down to 6, just like kind of
Mhm.
being cautious about if that becomes a larger grade, because we do get a lot of third grade students that do come in at the beginning of the year.
Yep.
And if those classes balloon a lot bigger than we were hoping, if that maybe
Yeah.
another option.
That's a good
for-
point. Yeah, we can consider definitely another homeroom teacher in third, because if you remember correctly, and I'm going to show you on this slide right here, that third grade, if you look down in the bottom right, these are my class size numbers. I know it's a little small. I tried to get all this on one because it's easier if we can see it on one screen, so I don't have to toggle back and forth. But third grade, hopefully you can see, is going from 149 to 129 students. It's the one outlying grade level that just is not projected to have a ton of kids. So we have them at 6 homeroom classes. Second, we have them on 6 homeroom classes, but this is still their size. So what Lena is saying, what happens if we get 25 third graders that start, which we do get probably maybe 5, maybe 10 new third graders.
So Jay, if I'm reading this right, is it say currently we have 137 second graders who we would think matriculate to third grade, and they're only projecting 129?
Correct.
So they think we're gonna lose 8 students?
And that's all we can go off of. That's just kind of what we have to go off of. But if you look at 164 in K, I mean, they're projected to grow by 4 students. You have 163 here, they're projected to grow to 172. That's just kind of how
I find that, fascinating.
Yeah,
'Cause
I will
don't-
say, it's not a shot in the dark. There's just a lot of science behind it. And so we really are just being told to trust our one guy in the district that does that. If
right.
we had to add this 137 and just anticipate 137, 6 homeroom teachers with 50 in DLI, which is helpful. And I will tell you, this is the one grade level that has stuck with DLI, and it has helped us, that 50 of them will be in DLI. So I do still think we could house those 137 in these 5 classes, or 4 classes, I'm sorry, if we needed to. But
Are there 50 in DLI now in second grade?
they have 24 and 24. They're projected
okay,
to have, they're projected to have 2 language learners come in that we can put in there.
Awesome.
So it's good that we have, like, we're not pulling up like 17 and 18 and having to make the other classes really high. So I hear you. One other option we always have is to look at these other grade levels and to see if we need to shave a teacher off at the start of the year, and we slide that person to third. We always have that option. That disrupts sort of 2 grade levels, right, as opposed to just 1, but it happens all the time. And I do have 7 teachers for a 5th grade class projected to be at 120. If in a world these 120 turns into about 110 or 100, we could pull a teacher off of 5th if we needed to in an emergency. It would be totally fine. It wouldn't cost us any money, and it would solve all of our problems. But anyways, I wanted to talk about how I did the budget template breakdown. When I open my budget template, this is, I did a couple things. First thing I do is I have to pay attention to 3 tabs. The first one is our substitutes. I got to make sure that we're set with subs. I can't balance the whole budget to 0 and then be like, oh, I forgot about substitutes. We use a lot of subs. We use almost a whole staff member. A member in FTE is $109,000 per teacher. We typically have about $109,000 in there. It's a full-time teacher in subs. But we use a lot of sub days. We use a lot of professional learning days, and we also have 112 staff members that take substitutes. So I budgeted 6 days for subs, so I have $109,000 sitting in subs. Then I have to make sure that we bring back, remember, my goal is we didn't lose anybody this year. I have 2 cafeteria monitors. In my opinion, those are the 2 most important positions in the entire school, because they are the hardest to find and hourly. And that's actually not true. We know that. But I like to say it is, because it's so hard to find somebody who's willing to work 3 hours a day and be in a cafeteria. But we have 2 great people. I got to make sure I bring them back. They're $12,261 a piece times 2. So there's another $24,000 that we take off. And then one thing I did, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this red was actually what's left over after the very end and I placed it in there. But let's just pretend like right now that was placed in our teaching other supplies. If you can just use that, okay? I will tell you that 55,000 was that 20K I allotted aside for math, the 20K I allotted aside for reading, and about that other 8,000 you saw for science of reading, professional learning. Even though that will all be paid for by the foundation, that gives me this amount of money to spend. So if all that is placed where it needs to be placed, I open up my budget template and I have $373,555 to play with. I abolished these two EIP positions. Can you guys see my mouse? Can you see my mouse? Okay. I
Yes.
abolished these two EIP positions right here. We don't need them. Both of these teachers left. Notice of intent. So we're not losing them. So I just abolished those positions. That's $109,171 per teacher. So that gives me a new budget of $591,897. Then I had to start looking at these CARES positions and how to get them off of CARES, right? So I moved one full-time CARES to general budget. That was a third grade teacher that was sitting on CARES. I took her $109,000. I created a new position for her on general funds, which brought my total down to $482,726. Then I had to get this kindergarten para down here off of CARES, and we would have lost her, put her back on general budget. Now that's 50,000 for a para. Now that gives me my new budget of $432,557. Then I had one teacher that was being funded 0.5 by CARES, half of her salary. I moved that off of CARES and made her a 1.0 on my general budget. So that 54,000, that was how much half of her salary cost. Remember, it costs $109,171 per teacher. That's my new budget here. Subtract that from 432. My new budget is 377,971. Now I need to create my second grade position, because if you remember down here, we're going from 6 to 8 second grade. We have 172 rolling up. So I created a new second grade position who we've hired for. It's going to be phenomenal. She cost $109,000. So that's our new budget now. Then I needed to create this EIP first through third. That's our EIP. That's our extension classroom down here. It's one more second grade classroom. We're going to make an EIP designated classroom. That's another $109,000. That gives me $268 now balanced. But now we have 8 teachers to house these 172 first graders that are rolling up to second grade. Okay. Now I created a new EIP. I created my school clerk position. That's right here. Remember, I abolished the hourly school clerk. I made it full-time. So that's right here. All right. That's all I had left. If you notice, that gives me that 0 budget. Now, technically speaking, I had this 55,482 left, and that's what I put into there. I did it a little bit backwards. Hopefully you guys can still understand it. If you didn't understand, then I can send it again and I can add 54,482 to the starting sum, but it's just going to give me that number at the end and I'm going to move it back up there. Does that make sense to y'all? Kind of. I'll say it one more time. This budget did not include this 55,482. That was actually left over at the very end. And I moved that up to my teaching supplies. But if it doesn't make sense, I can do it again and send it out. We'll add this to the original starting point, and then at the end, it'll spit that out as my leftover money. But long story short, it's all balanced now. We've got these class sizes here. I've got 8, 8, 8, 6, 7, and 7. And I want to draw your attention to the innovative class model guidelines over here. To order to max.
Jay.
Yes.
Oh, Jay, I'm sorry, I do have a question.
Go ahead.
I understand what you're saying about the intervention teachers are homeroom teachers in some of the grades. And how resilient are we in that model to increase increase enrollment? So for example, I know that like to be an EIP class, you have to have a smaller class size and only a certain percentage of the kids can be identified as EIP. And I don't remember exactly when, but I know in some years we've had it where, oh no, we didn't expect to get this many kids in the grade. Well, now we're too big to be an EIP class. So now we're going to how resilient are we to some sort of, August or September change to this whole plan that you have?
Yeah. Great question.
Do you know how many?
You're right, because we don't know how many kids we get in. We come over. I will tell you, Mindy and I still meet about once a week for a new baby that's coming in and doesn't fit the
Right.
model. Then we have to figure out how to pull them out and give them 15 minutes of reading or math, or figure out where do they go EIP start. You know, we're pretty resilient with it. We've made it work this year. But I will tell you that it's not always easy. It's always pretty good in 4-5. We usually don't have the issues up at these upper grades. Kindergarten, we really don't worry about. We don't even worry about it till January. It's just one of those things that we just wait till January to figure out. And it's really that first and through third that we keep an eye on.
Really this year, Maggie, to answer like your question, like definitively with some numbers, I think we had, it's most difficult 3 through 5 because of the model that we're using. And we had for the entire year, we had 4 students who we had to work on getting it arranged.
Okay.
And so
Okay.
it's
So it
not,
wasn't
so like it did
small.
work.
Thank you.
It did work.
Okay.
In K through 3, it's not really an issue because we use the pull-out model.
Yeah.
And so
I had it
as long as we have like 2 or 1.5 full-time interventionists, then we can accommodate the new students who come in.
Got it. Okay.
And
that
Mindy,
helps. Thank you.
That's K through 2, right? Not K through 3. So like
Correct.
third.
K2 is easy as long as we have the intervention teachers, which I think we have 1.5 at the primary center right now. And I think we're keeping that. Is that correct, Jay?
That's correct. We've got,
Yep.
I'll just say Ms. Cutshaw is our
Yeah.
full-time intervention teacher now. And then we hired another 0.5 ESOL, 0.5 intervention. So we have 1.5 at K to serve these, K2 to serve them. But we just have Ms. Dickerson at Maine, right?
And Ms. Dickerson does not do the EIP model. She is working with your tiered students. She's doing the SST support.
Right.
So, which does overlap with EIP, but she does not pull out EIP students at this time.
So we have to, we create blocks in the schedule, like we talked about, Lena. That's going to be a 50-minute math, 50-minute reading for each grade level, so we can shift kids around where we need them to. But long story short is, I wanted to show you guys the max class size for this innovative model, because even though we do pull out in K2, we are still able to do pull out with minimal amount of staff, but with great class size numbers. In the past, these class sizes would be 25, 26, 27, and we would have 4 intervention teachers. I mean, that's how it was, especially at main campus. And I thought we have too many intervention. We need to put them all back in the classroom, reduce the class sizes. And I tasked Mindy with, figuring out how to do that. And she did. So I just wanted to show you really quickly these max class sizes right here for the innovative model for maximum funding. They really want to try and keep your K around 18. And obviously that's going to be hard for us. First through third is right around 21, and that's to get serve the kids all day long in an EIP model. And while we still do pull out, we're still able to get those class sizes down to 21. 4 and 5 can have a little bit more, but we still have to serve them like Mindy said for MTSS purposes and some reading and math, which we have that covered. Chris, I do see your hand up. I will tell you that this meeting is for Go Team members only. And until you get elected in, you're just an observer. However, if you would like to put a comment in the chat box, I can read it and present it like it's my own, if you're okay with that. Okay?
That works.
All right, man. Thank you.
Jay, quick
go ahead.
question, Jay. How confident are we that the innovative class model is something that the district will approve again for us?
We're good for next year. Right,
yeah,
Mindy?
we've been told that there'll be no changes unless the state changes something. So if we get information from the state that they change the EIP models in July, then we'll have new information, but hopefully they won't do that.
Right. And I mean, the long story short is you either have this model right here that you're looking at with reduced class sizes with 21, 22, and we figure out how to serve those EIP kids, or we make class sizes of 25, 26, and we have 4 intervention teachers and the kids get pulled out. That's what we had multiple years ago. So if you're looking at big picture, that's kind of what it is. Our parents, our kindergarten parents, the school tours I'm on, they love when I tell them we have 20 to 21 in a class in kindergarten, for example. Some of their preschools have more classes than that. Does each enrolled kid represent a dollar value for the school's revenue from a government funding perspective? That's a great question. And I will just say, I just want to remind everyone that every child comes with a base weight of $5,544. So that's where our projection, that's where our budget comes from a federal and local standpoint. Those dollar amounts come from the 5,554 per student. And then don't forget, on top of that, we get some weights. So kindergarten brings in the most for 0.6 weight. So you take their 5,554, multiply it by 159 students, and then multiply that times 0.6 their weight, and that's the additional funds that we get for K. We get the most amount of money for kindergarten students, for gifted students, and we get the least amount of students for 4 and 5 grade students. There's no weights on those. We still get the dollar amount per student. It's called the SSF formula, student success, that 5,554, but we don't get any weight on top of it. And then special ed carries very little weight, but that's because it's funded through a different source.
I will,
Yes, and I will tell you that leveling is about 30 kids. So if you look at that 147, that's about 30 kids. That's exactly right. And we have to grow by 30 kids next year. Losing the 5th grade, having them roll up, having our K roll up, we've got to sprinkle in 30 kids throughout those grade levels.
yeah,
And
we
Jay,
had
I did just want to add to the EIP, although we don't have as many, so it doesn't generate big funds, those EIP kids do bring in the highest weight at 1.5. So like, I know we give a lot of staffing to those EIP kids, but it does kind of even out with how heavily supported they are financially.
if we just had to add another kindergarten tour for March, and all 3 of them are like full with waiting lists. So just FYI.
Right. The word is out.
Mm.
Other teachers are trying to come too. We just opened up the internal transfer window, and it's like everybody wants to come to Brandon. I can tell you that. When we're talking about schools right around the corner from us. All right. So this is how I leveled the budget right here. And this is what our class sizes look like down here. This is the innovative model. I put it there. These were the positions I created this year. In the past, I just want to say, I would open the budget and we would be 373 in the red. Okay. This was during the pandemic. This was right after, and I had to abolish this position, bring it down, abolish this position, bring it down. Finally, I'd get it to 0, but then I had to abolish another one to give us some spending money. Now we're going the opposite direction, and it's a lot better. But Chris was correct when I tell you that 147 equates to, that's right. We had 865 this year, and we're projected at 893, right? 60 kids, 28, 27. So we really have to grow, or that reserve money goes away. But I will tell you, I think we can survive next school year if we lose the reserve based on the staffing that we have right now. I hope we don't. I think we'll be okay, but we're not in a make or break like we've been in the past. Now, if for some reason we're 50 kids short or 40, then we have to look at our whole staffing plan. But we have a good plan here. So, any questions on this before we move on to our vote? Really? Okay.
Jay,
No
I'm sorry,
questions.
I have one question.
Yep. Go ahead,
Do
Kim.
these numbers get updated again, or like how do they get updated once a year or like twice a year?
In regard to projections,
Uh-huh.
this is the only projection we're going to have for all of next year. It sets the whole budget. I want to remind you that if we come in over 893, we earn money, right? We get that 5,544 per kid. But
if they come in the first 2 weeks, right? Because after
if they come in the first 2 weeks, you're right.
right?
Thank you for that. Thank you.
We don't want someone coming in the 3rd week.
We don't get any money for the 25 kids that have started between the 2nd week and now.
I know.
But we've lost 25 too, I would say.
Yeah.
We've had kids that have left and we kept their money, right? The idea of the SSF formula, the student success formula, that if a kid leaves Brandon at the end of this year and goes to Rivers for next year, that dollar amount goes with the child. It's like he's wearing it in a backpack, which is a cool kind of equity-based formula. So you're right. We want to try and get, so that I'll tell you, August 1st is a stinky day to start school because people are still on summer break and people up north don't even know we've started. I have a heart attack about the first 5 days of school when our enrollment is around 780. And I'm like, where are all the kids? Then they start trickling in. It used to be a 10-day head count and they gave us a 15-day head count. For the first 3 weeks of school, we are enrolling kids. We are putting kids in classes. We're calling families. Where are you? We get your kid here. But after that 15-day, the budget is locked for the entire year. And so the goal is 893. Some questions for you to consider. I'll give you a second just to look through that if you want. Any questions before we move on? All right, I'm going to let Ashley take this on. Do you have a script for this, Ashley, or do you want you?
Do, yeah.
All right, go
Thank
for
you,
it.
Jay. I think we're at the point where we can entertain a motion to approve the budget. So would anyone like to make one?
I can make a motion.
I think that was LaJoy. Thank you, LaJoy. A second?
I'll second motion, and I think if we follow Robert's rules of order, it's an open, a motion, a second, and then there are any comments. And so I'll make a second, and then I've got a comment when y'all are ready for one.
All right, let's hear your comment.
All right. Listen, I just want to tell everybody, I've been participating in Go Teams for a couple of years. Just want to remind everybody, this is probably the most important thing we do all year. And so I'll just say, as a member of the Go Team, man, I've loved being a part of this group. We've all worked together. Think the world of Jay, and I think he's leading us in a really great place. So my view on this before we go to vote is that we worked really hard on lining up and confirming our priorities. And the way I look at this budget, this is right in line and serving all of our priorities. I listened to him, listen to all the teachers and everybody on this Go Team board, and I think it's incredible. So I think we've all worked really well together, and I think it's a great budget, and I'm ready to vote for it.
All right, thank you, Thomas. All right, so officially all in favor of the proposed 2024-2025 Morris Brandon budget, please say aye.
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 All opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions? Okay. I think we're approved. Kimberly, anything?
Hey, Thomas, thanks for the kind words, man. I appreciate it. I always turn my camera off for the vote so it doesn't look like I'm staring people down. I don't not just do that, but I really appreciate it, guys. This is not easy. I realize that I drive this process, and it's kind of up to the principal to make it understandable to our community. And we use a lot of jargon, and we use a lot of educational slang that I don't always know I'm using. So I appreciate you all that have reached out separately and have met with me and have worked through this with me. So awesome. Let's keep rolling. I appreciate you all.
Okay, great. So next is the security grant survey. So just to kind of give everyone a little bit of update, here's our discussion item number 2. So the governor will be proposing a grant aimed at enhancing securities in all schools statewide. And if approved by the General Assembly, it would allocate $45,000 annually to each school. So in light of the opportunity, the operations division is really eager to gather insights from everyone's Go Team, kind of, figuring out the best way to utilize the grant to enhance security within our schools. So we want to make sure everyone has a say and that it's allocated in a manner that maximizes impact on the safety and well-being of students. And it looks like the survey, they kind of want insight and everything by the end of March, so March 29th, so that they can consider everyone's input in the planning process. So Jay's going to provide us with the survey, and we're going to talk about the grant.
Right.
Which is right here.
So a couple quick things. This is just a brief discussion. We do have a next meeting on 3/14, and if we want to meet on that day, we can fill the survey out together. The survey has not been released yet. It looked like Ashley said, it's coming out the week of 2/26. And it needs to be done by March. Do you have that?
Yeah,
March 29th. March 29th.
Yep.
So the survey is coming out. It was supposed to be released this week. I don't have the survey. I'm sorry. It has not been released yet. But we have about a month to get it done. But if we wanted to meet on the 14th, we could fill the survey out then, or we can just have a discussion offline via email or here. But I wanted to show you a couple things. One, this is the letter we received from the Chief Operations Officer, Larry Hoskins. Take a second to read it if you haven't done so yet, because it does talk about a $45,000 annual grant to each school. People want to ask me, do we get two annual $45,000 because we have two campuses? I'm going to go ahead and probably say no. However, this is exciting because I do feel like with everything we've done with security, and then we are getting our vestibules this summer, and I've met with the team, and we've outlined a great plan, and like it is on and moving. And now I will tell you, getting it done by May 29th to August 1st is going to be, we'll see. But they have no choice but to have it ready by the first day of school. We have two buildings getting them done, so it's exciting about that. We've done our wrapping of the building with our bulletproof glass. We've got our door alarms. We've got increased fencing. We have so much stuff that if we were to look at how we want to spend this $45,000, do we want to make it something operational or do we want to make it into a position? Obviously, $45,000 is not going to cover a full-time officer, but it can cover about 60% of one. And we may be able to, if we want to discuss how that would look, either partner with another school to fill it out or look at using about, what's it, 45, 109 is 171 is how much an officer costs. Do the math, 110,000, you're talking $65,000 that we would need to fill out for an officer. So you guys can have a discussion if you want to on how to do that. We can look at building updates, but ultimately we're going to have to put it in the survey. One person asked how many schools have multiple campuses. And from my understanding, 4, they're all in the North Cluster. You have Jackson Elementary, Sarah Smith Elementary, Morris Brandon Elementary, and North Atlanta. I'm unaware of any other schools that have 2 campuses that I can think of. So there's 4.
Sutton has 2 campuses.
I meant Sutton. I think I said North Atlanta, but I meant Sutton. Sorry. Go ahead, talk.
I have 2 questions. A, is this grant for the whole state or just APS schools?
State of Georgia, governor.
So like the whole state, right? Like all the elementary schools in every single county.
Yep.
Public.
And then how confident are we that they're not going to be like, oh, here's $45,000 this year. But next year we're just going to take that away. Right? Like
I will.
Yeah, Kim, that's kind of one thing I want to say when we're thinking about this as a team is that we're not guaranteed it every year. And so if we're looking at a position versus enhancements to the building that will stay, as opposed to be gone the next year, I'm always going to be in favor of enhancements to the building that are going to last more than a year. And enhancements to the buildings don't have sick days and they don't get stuck in traffic. And, there's a lot of things that.
Oh, we lost you, Maggie. You went on mute by accident.
Sorry about that, guys. But yeah, I'm always going to be in favor of enhancements to the building because I think that they have a longer lasting impact. And I think that they're just more reliable. But also I do think we should push back some about the fact that we're 2 buildings and we have to split this money. I think that there's I don't know. I think there's every time that we get one bucket of money that's to go to a building, I don't think it's fair. And I do think that's something that we should continue to voice, and especially cluster advisory team members. That's something I would continue to work with the North Atlanta cluster and Elevate because it's an issue that gets overlooked a lot because it only impacts a few people.
Right. Great feedback.
I also want to kind of give a little oomph to what Maggie said, because our campuses, with the exception possibly of Jackson, these dual campuses are our largest elementaries and possibly our largest middle. I don't really know about that in our district. So not only is it affecting, 2 campuses, but it's also affecting the largest amount of students per place.
That's a great
I didn't say that very well, but you know what I mean.
I think that's important
too. That's a great point.
I did want to highlight this top line here. I pulled these out of my email. This line kind of stood out to me that as of today, there's no immediate implications to our budget proposal, and that the state legislature, and it's cut off because of my screen, I'm seeing the top of Zoom, but you can see that it's still like hasn't even gone to the floor of the General Assembly. So they have to vote on it, in hopes that Do we get it next year, or is it going to be in our budget for even FY 25-26, for example? It just
There's a-
seems like it still has a way to go. But the fact that Chief Operations, Larry Hoskins, reached out and told us to begin discussing how to use it seems like it's moving in the right direction. I don't know the survey yet, so we may just want to have an
Wait.
offline discussion or like see what those options are on the survey, because they make it very clear on here the money is going to the schools and not pooled at the district level, and that's how we got our last security grants. Never kind of came to the school. We bought Centegix with them, our badges that we press the buttons on that Mindy's got around her neck right there. So that was kind of like our the district-wide one. But this sounds like this one's coming directly to the school, and we have to make sure it's earmarked for safety and security. So we can maybe hold on the conversation unless anybody wants to share anything else around how they want to spend it.
I'd hold because I would like to know that it's actually going to happen.
Okay.
Agreed.
I would also like to know what the options APS is putting out there too, and just kind of see like maybe there's things that we aren't thinking about. But APS, I'll say this, it's a little bit of, I don't want to say a nightmare, but I'm sure it's tough on school systems to manage this, that everybody's going to sort of want different things or the same things, or like we got 56 elementary schools that are all going to want updates and this and that. So they're probably trying to get an idea so they could pool vendors together and sort of figure it out that way.
And also just think about like, and I don't know how to say this the right way, but APS is North Atlanta cluster with plus some other couple schools is we're like in a little bubble versus a lot of the other schools. So like some of our needs might be different than say other schools. So, I mean, I think that's important that this is going to the school specific, because a school in South Atlanta might have a very different need on security than maybe Morris Brandon does.
Ashley, we didn't have a chance to talk about this yesterday. Was it yesterday or Wednesday? Whatever was that cluster advisory team meeting, because I wanted to talk about it here first. But we do have another cluster advisory in April, and I know it's after this, but I do think that's a meeting where we begin to discuss with the team on how we can advocate for the North Cluster to have more funding for the dual campuses that we have. So that would be a good time to do that.
And
All
if
right.
there's discussion just with the other, if the other schools have similar, if we do want to fund some kind of officer, maybe we split it or pool our resources amongst the elementary schools and rotate. I mean, there's lots of things you could do.
Yeah, there are.
One last clarification question. So is this, since this is coming from the governor, is the buck stopping at the governor's desk on our question of whether they just wrote this as an oversight when they said school, and they potentially didn't consider the fact that some schools have multiple campuses?
It's a good question.
Great question. Given that the governor's mansion is in the Morris Brandon school zone, maybe we can go over there and have a conversation. But no, what I'm thinking is they give a lump sum based on whatever to the district. Like the district is going to request, say, we have this many schools, this is how it breaks down, this is what it is. We need to advocate probably with the district to advocate that we have 2 schools. And I would think that would be who we advocate with first. And I think the governor is going to have the money set aside. It's a matter of, can the district secure it? So I would start there, but that's a good question. That's a good question.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, good. Thanks.
Great.
Anybody's got any connections with Governor Kemp, though, right around the corner.
He doesn't have a kid at Brandon.
Right. These kids are a little older now, probably.
Grandkid, maybe?
Could be.
So next is information items. Jay, do you have anything from a principal's report?
No, just that I had a great foundation meeting yesterday. So we talked about how they're going to help us fund some of that math and literacy stuff, as they always do, which gives me a little more flexibility with that $55,000 that was left over. But all my updates for other committees that I sit on, PTA, foundation, I always give updates on Go Team. So I don't have any more updates since we're doing the work right here.
Okay. And
I did want to share this, though. I want to share one screen because I know you're going to talk about it. The elections.
I wasn't able to go to the cluster meeting, but didn't you moderate it?
I did. Yeah, I was the last person in the room and was voted to be the moderator of the cluster advisory team meeting. Who was on that one from our school?
So Ina is
Ina joined.
rep, but she was out of town and then I was gonna do it.
Oh, you were gonna do it and then it was fine. I mean, we talk a lot about cluster, our goals for our cluster. And there's 3 of them that we have, and it's around dual language immersion and supporting our language learners and vulnerable populations and what we're doing as a cluster. And then another one, a big one, is around family engagement and how we tie like the North Atlanta cluster into one big family, so it's not so isolated, and how we show the great things and the funnels that happen up through Southern North Atlanta. They did a big it's called One Carver. They did a Carver cluster huge event that they planned in 60 days, and it brought out every elementary school, every teacher, every parent, the middle and the high schools. So those people came on and showed us the process they did and how they organized that, which we loved. It was great, but it just would not work for North Atlanta. North Atlanta alone has nearly 2,500 kids. We have the largest elementary schools. Sutton has 1,600 kids. So we wouldn't be able to do something that large and try and expect everybody to come. But we did talk about some of the things that we're already doing with sporting events and things like that. So it was a lot of just like how to get the families engaged and that. But I can send the minutes over. I didn't find it too powerful or anything that like we had to miss. But I do think we can utilize the team to help with security, things like that.
Yeah. Awesome.
Can you guys see the elections down here?
Yeah, I can't believe
Yes.
We're the only school. There it is.
That's
I have
it.
3 teachers. I have 3 teachers that are running. And I emailed them. I said, I think you'd be great to be on Go Team, and they all jumped on. So that's exciting. I won't say who it is because that'll be voted by teachers. For parents, we can talk about who's running. We have 3 parents that have declared, and they are let's see. We have Chris Fellows, who is on the call now and learning all about our Go Team. We have Kim Ball, who is moving from our community seat into a parent seat. And then we have Kelly Shields, who is a parent, a DLI parent, 1st grade, who's also running. Those are the 3 that have declared as of when this email was sent. Tomorrow's the deadline, or yesterday was the deadline, so they may have had one more, but that's who we have. And parents will be voting on that soon. The good news is, and I will say this, that if Kim wins as the parent seat, I'm allowed to backfill her seat, I believe, early on. And we can look at whoever either didn't win and that we think might be a good candidate, or we can all just kind of discuss and everybody can bring someone to the table and we vote them on. So Kim's seat could be available if she wins, and we can sort of decide how we want to fill that seat as a Go Team. So I just
That
wanted
also
to say,
comes with the secretary position as well, if anyone wants it.
I'm getting some messages in here, private messages about people that know Governor Kemp and might know Governor Kemp. So I like that. We may follow up and see if we can put a bug in his ear about Morris Brandon, since we live in his school zone, and we have we're looking at 900 kids next year across 2 buildings. So I like that.
Cam, well played. I caught that. Well played.
Right.
I feel like no one's gonna really jump on that, so I will, if I happen to get lucky enough to get elected, I will continue my secretary.
You're
Kim,
so good.
that's half the battle. So that's a selling point. Did you put that in your bio when they release it?
Yes.
Will be
So
secretary.
I need to actually, I've had so much other stuff going on, but I need to like look at the election rules.
One thing I just want to make sure everybody does is vote, and please, Go Team, when you get the link emailed and texted to you, that you share it with your family. Your spouse can vote as well. They should get it too. It's a unique link. You can't vote twice. And if there's people that you like that are running and that you know, Go Team, I'm going to task you with telling your friends, because everybody gets the link texted to them by APS, but not everybody votes, or people just don't know who they're voting for. They just hit stuff. So I would encourage you in your little social groups to sort of talk about who we feel like would be the best, most productive members of Go Team.
And it's 1 vote per household. So like that was sort of confusing last year too.
Oh, it's 1 vote per household. Okay.
Household. But yeah, people don't even know like the Go Team.
I may have gotten that wrong too. Okay. So then you can work with your spouse or significant other on who to vote for in your household.
Yeah.
But definitely utilize your chains of like communication and networks to get the best people for our team.
Yep.
All right, did you want to require trainings? I think we're good with that.
Thank you everyone for doing the trainings. We're all set. I got verification from Diane Jacoby today, actually, so we're good there. And does anyone else have any other announcements?
I think there's a feedback form too that have been emailed to y'all. I have not, I don't get that. So hopefully you've gotten it and you can take that survey. So we have that good completion percentage too.
So Jay, you'll let us know if we're gonna have our next meeting or on the.
You know, Ashley, why don't you and I just talk offline and we can
Okay.
make the call how we want to do that. It's 3:14 right now. But since we approved the budget, that we are pretty good with that, but we may want to use it to discuss security, or we can just have an offline conversation where I can send a survey that's given to me and we can see how everybody feels about kind of what's on there. We should do it that way too.
Sounds good.
All right.
All right. Anyone else have anything? I think we're at the end of our agenda. Okay, so may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
A motion to adjourn.
Think
I'll
that-
second.
Thank you, LaJoy and Thomas. All in favor, please say aye. Raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Abstentions? All right, I think we're good to go. Meeting is adjourned at 4:29. Look at that, we saved it.
Thank you guys. I appreciate all y'all. Have a great rest of the week and we'll see you soon. Okay. Appreciate it.
Great work, everybody.
Yeah, great work for sure.
Good job, guys.
Bye.